The teacher's fundamental task is to design learning activities and get students to engage in learning activities that are likely to result in achieving the intended learning outcomes. It is equally important that each activity is meaningful and ensures in students' development and advancements through the unit. Activities should build on previous activities and avoid being repetitive. They should enable students to engage with and develop their skills, knowledge, and understanding in different ways. Useful learning activities are the ones where the students is able to take what they have learned from engaging with the activity and use it in another context or for another purpose. For example, students are able to directly apply the skills or knowledge they acquired to an assessment task or to the next activity in your unit. The essential components of effective, active learning activities are the same whether delivered in the online learning environment or in the classroom. These activities should have the following characteristics or components. These are some of the questions to think about as you design the learning activities that you will use. The table shows an example of learning activity plan with the type of activity, learning activity, and their descriptions. Constructivism is the theory that argues that knowledge is constructed when the learner is able to draw ideas from his or her own experience and connect them to the new ideas. Bruner's constructivist suggests it is effective when faced with new material to follow progression from inactive to iconic to symbolic representation. This holds true even for adult learners. Related to this are the processes of assimilation and accommodation. Assimilation refers to the process of taking new information and fitting it into an existing schema, while accommodation refers to using newly acquired information to revise or redevelop an existing schema. Discovery learning supports the idea that students learn when the use of personal experiences to discover facts, relationships, and concepts. This may involve the manipulation of physical materials, games, or experiment with physical objects. Discovery learning actively engages the learner in the process of forming mathematical ideas for himself. Key element to constructivism. There are several main components to include if you plan on adhering to constructivist principles in your classroom or when designing your lessons. Here are essential components to constructivist teaching. Here are the goals of constructivism in mathematics. First, students should develop their mathematical structures that are more complex, abstract, and powerful than the ones they currently possess, so that gradually they will be able to solve a wide variety of meaningful problems. Second, students should become autonomous and self-motivated in their mathematical activity. Lastly, another important goal of constructivism approach in mathematics is assessment, measurement, and evaluation, what should be a natural part of learning process rather than an activity completed at the end of the learning process. In discovery learning, assign interviews to spark curiosity. These help students discover the amazing information they can gather just by talking with people. Assign an interview and have the students write a summary of what they learned, what surprised them, and the advantage of learning information directly from a source. Also, have students go solo. Some of the best discovery learning projects are done solo. Give your students a problem or subjects to research on their own. Encourage them to use technology as part of their own. And then, have them come back together to see what everyone learned and what they discovered themselves. Another is to encourage mistakes and productive struggles. When students take control of their own learning, mistakes are inevitable, but mistakes are part of discovery learning. Providing timely feedback, quickly correcting mistakes, and continuously encouraging students to keep at it are critical to encourage students to push through difficult problems. Inquiry-based learning focuses on the practical aspects of learning rather than teaching. It requires reflection on what you are doing now, what you see and hear around you, and what you want to accomplish in the future. Asking questions is the inquiry aspect. Self-reflection is central to this approach to learning, which is based on the Socratic method of asking questions and developing understanding. There are 5 characteristics of inquiry-based learning. First is process focus. When students solve problems themselves, they internalize conceptual processes. Inquiry-based teaching prioritizes process over product. Next is investigation. The teacher may pose a problem derived from the class contents or students' questions. The students then investigate the issue to find an answer. Another, group learning. Students may work in pairs or in small groups when exploring a problem. Students assist one another throughout the learning process, which enables them to share and build upon ideas, as well as articulate how they arrive at a solution. Another characteristic of inquiry-based teaching is discussion monitoring. As the students work together, the teacher can move from group to group, listening to their discussions. Teacher may ask questions to gauge students' understanding and correct any misconceptions. Another characteristic is real-life application. Students solve math problems that have a meaningful life application. By building up an inquiry learning environment, children can both explore and explain what they have learned, as well as detect and solve life-related problems in their own ways. Cooperative learning is a part of a group of teaching learning techniques where students interact with each other to acquire and practice the element of a subject matter and to meet common goals. According to Bowles of 2012, writing is a process of meaning-making and a series of related text-making activities, generating, arranging, and developing ideas in sentence, drafting, shaping, rereading the text, editing, and revising. Writing is also known as a creative process because it is a process of reaching one's thought and discovering them. A good piece of writing demands standard forms of grammar, syntax, and word choice, not forgetting good mechanism, organization of paragraphs, and content. The writer's process and purpose should be clear, fluent, and effective communication of ideas. Cooperative learning is a generic term that is used to describe an instructional arrangement for teaching academic and collaborative skills to small, heterogeneous group of students. Cooperative learning is deemed highly desirable because of its tendency to reduce peer competition and isolation, and to promote academic achievement and positive interrelationships. According to the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics, learning environment should be created that promote active learning and teaching discourse, and individual, small group, and whole group learning. Cooperative learning is one example of an instructional arrangement that can be used to foster active student learning, which is an important dimension of mathematics learning and highly endorsed by math educators and researchers. Students can be given tasks to discuss, problem solve, and accomplish. This is an example of cooperative learning activity structure. Cooperative models include the following basic principles: Groups tasks are designed to be suitable for group work. Positive interdependence is built. Cooperation is necessary for students to succeed. Attention and class time are given to interpersonal or cooperative skill building. Participants learn together in small groups. Students are individually accountable for learning and participation. The instructor's role changes from being the sage on the stage to the guide on the side. The cooperative learning is about moving from rote learning to learning how to think critically and in changing circumstances. Here are the goal structure definitions. Cooperation. We sink or we swim together. Lessons are structured so that learners work together to maximize their own and each other's learning. Competition. I swim, you sink. I sink, you swim. Teachers structure a lesson where learners compete with each other to achieve a goal only few can attain. Individualistic. We are each in this alone. Learners work by themselves to accomplish learning goals unrelated to those of others' learners. Learners work alone. Here are the basic elements of cooperative learning. First is the positive interdependence, the interaction through activity. Learners help, assist, encourage, and support each other's effort to learn. Next is the individual accountability. The performance of each individual learner is assessed and the result is given back to the group and to the individual. Another is group processing. Interaction through reflection. At the end of their working period, the groups process their functioning by answering the two questions. What did each member do that was helpful for the group? And another is what each member do to make the group work better. Fourth is the skilled interpersonal communication. Skilled communication is necessary for effective group functioning. Learners must have and use the need of leadership, decision-making, trust-building, effective communication, and conflict management skills. The face-to-face primitive interaction. Independence through structure. Learners believe that they are linked together. They cannot succeed unless the other members of the group succeed. They sink or swim together. There are other ways to identify elements of cooperative learning. Spencer Kagan, in Cooperative Learning Resources for Teachers in 1994, he identified the needed element as positive interdependence, individual accountability, equal participation, and the simultaneous interaction. Blended teaching is an instructional approach that uses digital strategies in tandem with best practice in the classroom. It is also known as hybrid learning. It is a method of teaching that integrates technology and digital media with traditional instructor-led classroom activities, giving students more flexibility to customize their learning experiences. Flipped classroom, for example, is one type of blended learning model in which students view lecture materials prior to class, then spend class time engaging in exercises under the supervision of the teacher. Here are some considerations when implementing blended learning in class. Use a variety of teaching tools. Incorporate digital technology in your classroom lessons along with traditional methods of instruction. Switching between computer-based or gamified learning and face-to-face instruction will keep students engaged in their learning and strength lesson. It can empower students to move at their own pace. Make learning accessible for students. Learning should continue after students leave the classroom. A benefit of incorporating digital learning is that it allows students to access information, activities, games anywhere and anytime. Another consideration is personalized learning pathways for each student. Each student is unique with their own approach to their learning. Make sure to use resources with varying degrees of difficulty to encourage students that need it, while challenging those that have already mastered the material. Another consideration is to choose the blended learning model that works for you. Test out different models of blended learning to see what fits best in your classroom. There are three primary models of blended learning: the supplemental model, the emporium model, and the replacement model. The supplemental model of blended learning leverages online course components to help enrich the face-to-face classroom. In the supplemental model, there is typical no real reduction in classroom meeting time. However, the online course components are thoughtfully planned to complement classroom activities and extend learning beyond the classroom. The supplemental approach can take many forms and serve many different instructional goals. Here are just a few. Deepen interaction. These enable online collaboration to deepen classroom interaction. Another, increase time efficiency. These demonstrate key concepts or foundational material online to make better use of class time. Also, offer flexibility. On-demand review learning when they enter the classroom. And enable review and repetition. Use online modules to cover complex topics for students to assess on demand. The second primary model of blended learning is the emporium. Emporium model of blended learning replaces all or some traditional face-to-face class meetings with collaborative, active-based work done in Learning Resource Center or a shared student learning space where students access the online course materials. A space like this typically offers lots of connectivity, computers, wireless connections, easy access to all online course materials, flexible furnitures, and etc., and fosters collaborative learning in its space design. In transplanting the class meetings to this type of space, the Emporium model's learning goals can include the following: encouraging independent students to work, often with either instructor or other in-person support is available in the Emporium learning space. Also, allowing flexibility to class time. The learning process can be more fluid and allow for multiple classes to be held at the same time in one space. Also fostering collaboration and activity-based learning among students, and making better use of shared space to enhance students' learning and to rethink the efficacy of the traditional lecture-style course. The third and last primary model of blended learning is replacement. Replacement model of blended learning substitutes online content and activities for portions in class time, and reduce face-to-face class time. The replacement model also changes the way that the face-to-face class time is structured. Class time is dedicated more to interactive activities and peer-to-peer or to student-to-structure collaboration that cannot be conducted as easily online. The replacement model of blended learning is perhaps one of the more widely used and promoted models of blended learning course design, partly because it helps to mitigate the course and a half syndrome of some of the other models by focusing on the reduction of in-class or seat time. Often leverages an online micro-lecture style that makes efficient use of lecture materials and online lecture delivery, promotes efficiency of both in-class and online time, and engages students with the course content in both the face-to-face and the online environment. And this is where my reports end. Thank you for watching, everyone.